That Hideous Strength is the final work of Lewis's space trilogy, and it is my personal favorite. Similar to the abolition of man, That Hideous Strength is very prophetic for today's world. The content of the book is also very similar to the abolition of man, but rather than being an explanation for his beliefs, it's in story format. This makes it easier to actually visualize how the abolition of man may actually play out in reality. The best part of the book is that it's written in 1945, and since that time, Lewis's theories on how the future will play out have come to pass in very real ways. With that said, even though this is a summary video, I will be primarily focused on the content of the book and the ideas presented rather than simply summarizing the narrative. This is because the story itself is just a vehicle to show Lewis's ideas for how evil will attempt to take over the world. I also highly recommend watching my summary on the abolition of man in combination with this summary because they are connected in many ways. That Hideous Strength revolves around a man named Mark and his wife Jane. Mark is invited to be part of a group called the National Institute for Coordinated Experiments, or the NICE for short. NICE is an evil organization that attempts to take over the town. Mark is a sociologist and his wife is a PhD student who also unknowingly has psychic powers that typically come from her dreams, where she can see real events happening in the world. Mark gets sucked into the NICE and Jane gets brought into the good guys group at St. Anne's throughout the book. Ransom, if you remember him from the other books, is part of the good guys, but now he's become the Pendragon, and he is trying to stop Earth's evil Oyarsa, who is the devil. NICE is on the side of the devil, but not directly or knowingly for the most part. The NICE is trying to find the body of Merlin, so they can decapitate him and make him the head of the NICE. This idea is an ironic play on words because the head of the NICE is just a literal decapitated head that is kept alive through some weird science. Merlin is not dead, however, even though everyone thinks he is. He's really just frozen in time, but he eventually wakes up and meets up with Ransom. Ransom tells Merlin that the Oyarsa of Mars needs to possess him so that they can fight against Earth's evil Oyarsa. Merlin allows it, and then they infiltrate the NICE and kill pretty much all of them. That is a super summarized version of the story. There are many details that I'm leaving out because the story itself is not what makes the book so interesting to me. The themes and deeper meanings behind the story are the true gems. One of the major themes that's strung throughout the book has to do primarily with the main character, Mark. Mark is very eager to be part of this secret society. He really wants to be special and renowned among his peers, and he's willing to do just about anything to achieve this. He ends up compromising on his morals, his intuitions, and even his own relationship with his wife. He is hired into the NICE in order to write articles that support what the NICE is doing. In essence, he is just a propaganda machine for the evil organization. In one case, Mark is tasked with writing an article about how the NICE squashed a riot that was occurring in the town. Rather than telling the truth about the riot or what was happening, he instead praises the way that the NICE police force handled the situation. What makes matters worse is that Mark actually writes the article before the event actually occurs. Mark is happy to do it because his superiors praise him for his work, and all he can really think about is his reputation and how renowned he will become. Little does he know that during this riot, his own wife is captured and tortured by the head of the police to get information from her about her psychic visions. Mark's example shows just how easy it is for normal people to get sucked into doing evil things because of their own selfish ambitions. This story also illustrates how truth doesn't matter in the media. The media will show you what they want to show you, regardless of what actually happens. This is certainly true in our day today, and if anyone is a historian, you can let me know if the media worked that way in 1945 when Lewis wrote this. That Hideous Strength also does a great job of depicting the hellish nightmare of transhumanism. The NICE is attempting to create a being that is eternal, a floating head that cannot die. In Lewis's eyes, anyone who goes against the natural order of God's creation cannot help but fall into the dominion of demons. This is because what transhumanists are trying to do is perfect humanity through means that cannot work. Christianity teaches clearly that the only thing that can perfect a human is submission to God. But these transhumanists are trying to do it through other means, and therefore fall into the trap of the devil. The end result is that they wind up doing extreme evils in pursuit of creating something perfect. If you are a keen reader and notice the book is written in 1945, you may see some similarities to the time. Nazism and Bolshevism both attempted to be perfected by evil means, and they both failed. There are massive and obvious parallels between the NICE and what was going on during World War II. This attack on transhumanism, or perfecting the humanity by means other than God, is spoken about also in the Screwtape Letters. Quote, "To emotionalize and mythologize their science to such an extent that what is, in effect, a belief in demons, though not under that name, will creep in while the human mind remains closed to the belief in God. If once we can produce our perfect work, the materialist magician, the man not using but veritably worshipping what he vaguely calls forces while denying the existence of spirits, then the end of the war will be in sight." You see that these people worship these forces unaware that they are following demons. Scientists that divorce the world from its creator will ultimately follow demons unaware. If you didn't notice, this is very similar to what happens in Paralandra. Weston follows a demon that he calls the life force, which ultimately takes over his body and results in his death. Similarly to the abolition of man, Lewis does not think that scientific progress is always a good thing. In fact, he thinks it's quite evil in many cases. Anything that humanity tries to do that goes against the established traditions that humans have gone by for nearly all of human history will ultimately lead to the death of humanity. In The Abolition of Man, he refers to human tradition as the Tao, or the Way. Great strides in the realm of science can be great for supporting humanity, but on the other hand, if it seeks to change essential parts of human life, it will abolish humanity entirely. See my review of The Abolition of Man for more details on this. We can see the abolition of man happening before our eyes. The system that we are creating, we are serving, rather than the system serving us. A key theme that I cannot ignore is the path that both Mark and Jane take throughout the book. Mark is taken to the NICE, and he is ensnared to the point where they frame him for murder to try and keep him from leaving. His decisions slowly drag him into a hellish life where he is trapped in his sin. Jane, on the other hand, reluctantly joins the good team at St. Anne's, and she slowly transforms from an anxious, unhappy person into a joyful, beautiful woman. At the end of the book, they are reunited, and Jane is a changed person from her conversion to Christianity, whereas Mark is barely escaping the hell that he put himself into. One final theme that we have to discuss runs throughout the entirety of the Space Trilogy. That is, that good and evil both exist, and good will always win if we keep fighting for it. Evil can never be completely destroyed, but if the good side keeps fighting, then the evil will be suppressed. If you fight on the side of God, you cannot lose. It may look hopeless, like the good guys at St. Anne's going against the NICE, but ultimately, the good guys will always win. Lewis goes to great lengths to have a clear-cut good guy and a clear-cut bad guy. This is because the Bible presents good and evil in this way. If you are in alignment with God, you are good. If you go against God, you are evil. Many writers today like to blur the lines between good and evil, but Lewis does the opposite. His books are like old westerns, where the good guy has a white cowboy hat and the bad guy has a black one. This clear line is seen as childish for many, but Lewis uses it to show that the world really is like this if you can look past the facade. Well guys, that's just about everything I've got on the Hideous Strength. It was easily my favorite of the 3 books in the Space Trilogy, and I'd recommend giving it a read, especially if you are a fan of The Abolition of Man. Thanks for watching, and let me know what you think about the book in the comments.